You know, it's pretty wild how a single piece of art can spark a massive geopolitical crisis, forcing an entire nation to completely rethink how it defends its most vulnerable border. We're going to break down exactly how that happened.
All right, take a look at this number, 22 kilometers. Seems small, right? But what if I told you that for one of the world's biggest countries, that tiny distance is the only thing connecting nearly 50 million of its own people across 7 states to the rest of the nation? Yeah, that's the incredibly fragile reality we're diving into today.
And this isn't just some random piece of land we're talking about. This is, without a doubt, India's single most critical geographic weak point. I mean, it's a lifeline that, if it were ever cut, could trigger just catastrophic consequences for the entire country.
So what is this place? Well, it has a nickname that tells you everything you need to know. The Chicken's Neck. And that name, it perfectly captures just how fragile the Siliguri Corridor really is. This isn't just a stretch of land. It's the one and only land bridge connecting mainland India to its huge, strategically vital Northeast region.
And just to really hammer home how high the stakes are, we're talking about all 7 of these northeastern states. Every single one of them: Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, and Meghalaya. They'd all be completely, utterly cut off if this one single corridor were ever compromised. Think about that.
Okay, so you've got this massive, long-standing vulnerability. It's been there for decades. So what could possibly happen to suddenly crank up the tension? Well, the answer is surprisingly simple. And it all started with a piece of art that sent a diplomatic shockwave right through New Delhi.
Yep, this is what lit the fuse. An artwork, of all things. It was called Art of Triumph, and it was presented by Bangladesh's leadership to foreign delegations. But here's the thing. It showed a map of a so-called Greater Bangladesh that just happened to include huge chunks of sovereign Indian territory. So for India, you can imagine, this wasn't art. No way. This was a symbolic challenge, a direct threat to its territorial integrity.
And India's response? It was immediate and crystal clear. The Defense Minister Rajnath Singh put out a direct and incredibly firm warning. The message was simple: watch your words and actions. This was India's signaling, in no uncertain terms, that it was taking this symbolic act dead seriously.
So to really get why this was such a big deal, we need to zoom in and look at what's physically at stake. I mean, what's actually running through this narrow choke point every single day.
See, the Chicken's Neck is anything but empty land. It's literally packed with the arteries of the nation. We're talking national highways, major railway lines, crucial pipelines for oil and gas. It's all squeezed through there. So cutting this off, that's not just closing a road, it's severing the entire economic and social lifeline to the whole Northeast.
All right, so faced with this very real renewed threat, India decided that just talking wasn't enough anymore. They moved way beyond diplomacy. They put in place a decisive, permanent solution right on the ground, a brand new military fortification designed to make that corridor basically impregnable.
And this right here represents a massive shift in thinking. The old strategy? It was all about relying on diplomatic goodwill, on hoping your neighbors play nice. The new strategy? Forget that. It's all about preemptive, physical, heavily armed fortification. It's a total move from, hoping for the best to preparing for the absolute worst.
So, how exactly did they do it? Well, with something they're calling the protective triangle. Basically 3 new, strategically placed military garrisons. First up, you've got Bamuni in Assam. Its job is to watch those northern river routes for any infiltration. Then there's Kishanganj in Bihar, which acts as the main logistics and troop staging hub. And finally, the anchor, Chopra in West Bengal, positioned to directly guard that critical, narrowest 22-kilometer section. It's a 3-point lockdown.
But look, this is so much more than just plopping some troops down on a map. This physical triangle is backed up by a whole new military doctrine, and it's designed to send a very, very clear message.
This new doctrine really boils down to 5 key things. First, rapid response. We're talking minutes, not hours. Second, enhanced surveillance. Think drones and radar covering everything, 24/7. Third, tactical redundancy, which is a fancy way of saying they have multiple defensive layers, so there's no single point of failure. Fourth, a unified command, getting the Army and the Border Security Force to work as one seamless unit. And finally, the big one, credible deterrence. Tying it all together to send an unmistakable signal. Don't even think about it.
So, what's the bottom line here? The ultimate goal is to completely change the game,
to make the chicken's neck an impregnable line of Indian sovereignty, not some geopolitical bargaining chip. India's basically saying, loud and clear, that the era of just trusting diplomatic goodwill to protect its most vulnerable point, that era is over.
And all of this leaves us with a really big, critical question, one that goes way beyond just this one corridor. As more and more nations move to secure their weak spots with permanent military force, is this what the new normal looks like? Is a heavily armed, constantly watched border the new definition of regional stability? It's something to think about.